FPK, Future-Proof Knowledge Podcast. Mind unlocked. With every episode we cast. Real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky. FPK, Future-Proof Knowledge Podcast.
Jashon, Future-Proof Knowledge Podcast, episode 23. And we are the week of Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Jashon.
Happy holidays across the pond over there.
How are you doing in the build up to Christmas? Do you normally get excited about Christmas, or are you more of a it's just another day type thing for you?
It's more of just another day type of thing for me. I mean, I like Christmas and the music and the overall feel of the season, but it's just too much. And I'd love it a lot more if they didn't start putting out Christmas stuff and playing Christmas music before Thanksgiving came around.
Yeah, I was only having that conversation with a client actually last week, and like he was feeling the pressure with Christmas, and he's got family members who aren't well, and he's kind of going, we want to try and make Christmas really special for those family members who are unwell and for our kids, and he was really feeling the pressure. And that is quite a typical story in my experience, where a lot of people, like, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Everyone hears that song. Everyone goes, I'm so excited. And then there's so much pressure on us to make it the most wonderful time of the year. So we try to squeeze in, see in all our relations, all our friends, all our kids' friends, like everyone in the space of a week. Like, I remember last year talking to a friend of mine, and I was saying, like, I felt it was quite a relaxed Christmas last year for us. Like, we made very definite decisions to kind of have just like our own little family time for ourselves. But I still saw my family, be that my parents, my brother and his family, I think 4 times in the space of 7 days. And we saw my wife's family 3 times in the space of 7 days. Like, we would never do that at any stage ever throughout the year. And if anyone suggested we would do that, we'd go, no, that's not that we don't like them, we do, but just that's so intense that we have to see all these people. And what we as a couple decided a number of years ago was, do you know what? Christmas was just so busy that by the time we got going back to work, we were bloody wrecked. And you're kind of going, oh my God, like, we've just had our 2 weeks off, and we're heading straight back into work and we're wrecked. So we made a very conscious decision to kind of go, right, let's just cut things back where we have days of just chilling out at home with the family, or like our kids, or we just go off and we do something ourselves and try not to take that pressure off. Yet still, we saw both families 7 times in the space of 7 days. So if our listeners take nothing away from this podcast, I would hope that they might just take a little bit of pressure off their shoulders and not feel like they needed to go and see the world in 7 days.
That's excellent. And then I will say to my neurodiverse community and parents of those fabulous children that for me and my family, we're probably like a lot of other families in this situation. Holidays, you kind of become jaded to holidays. This is the time of the year where if you do get invited to holiday functions, the stress level starts to build up just at the time of the invite, because you're thinking about all the accommodations you're going to have to do when you get to that person's house. You want to spend time with your family, you want to enjoy them, but you already know that you're going to be tied to running around chasing your child, making sure that they're following the rules of the house that you're visiting. So that's kind of the reason why, yeah, it's another holiday for us. I don't really take invites to other people's places. We just kind of do our own thing so it can be manageable and there's not the don't do this, don't do that. It's Christmas. Feel free, be at your house, run around. And for families in my situation, that might be the best solution. Have people come to your house so that you don't have to abide by their house rules. You can just let your child be in their safe space, their free space, have fun, enjoy what they do, open up presents early because at somebody else's house, they're going to open up everybody else's presents and they're going to get yelled at. So if you're in my situation, try to do things at home. Try to do things in your safe space, and it's going to make your holiday season that much easier. And
Yeah,
that's my tip for the holiday season.
that's a great piece of advice. And like, yes, we like what I'm taking from what you're saying is that it's not like you're saying that, you know, friends and relations are, you know, so uptight and they're being like really kind of shitty towards you and your family. But it's sometimes it's just even what we have to think about is as stressful as the actual event can be sometimes. Because I could imagine not many people turn around to you, I would hope, and kind of go, Jashon, your son's a bit of a disgrace here. Now you need to get a grip on him. They might say it behind your back, but they're probably not going to say it to your face. Or do you have those friends and family members who will go, here, sort your fucking child out quick?
I got some. Yeah, it kind of goes both ways. Like I stayed at a friend's house in Southern California a couple of years back, and the son was with us. Very neat, proper house, and it was like, can't sit this way, can't touch this, he can't do that, and it's like, well, then we can't communicate because I'm gonna have to hold his hand, and my visit to your house is just pointless at this point. So, um, yeah, it goes both ways. You got some people that are like, come over, just let him loose, just don't worry about it. We've got plenty of people here who will watch him and make sure something breaks. Don't worry about it. Let him do his thing. So you feel welcomed in those situations, but still as a parent, it's still stressful because you don't want them doing those things. So
Exactly.
I've just found in my experience, keeping it at home, keeping it in your safe space under your rules, the way you live, makes holidays a lot more um, less stressful.
Good. And I suppose you know, the theme of today is tips because, you know, we're very lucky that we do get questions from audience members and listeners who are kind of going, look, I'm in a situation here. What advice would you guys give from your perspective? So today is going to be answering some of those questions from people. And what prompted us to have that little conversation was a number of questions around the same type of thing. How do we manage the invites to friends and family when we're so worried about our child doing something that they would naturally do at home and we wouldn't worry about, but other people would? We don't want to see them breaking things in other people's houses, and we don't want to feel guilty about that. So that's where we kind of jumped in there. But let me pull up. I'm well prepared today, Jashon. Right? Let me
Aren't we
pull up.
always?
We always. This show is just so smooth. It's unbelievable. Um, but yeah. So we've got one question in from Pauline. Pauline, hi Pauline. I don't know where Pauline is based, and Pauline is saying, my child is 6 years of age and is showing signs of struggling in school. We are concerned as parents as to what might be going on, if there is some sort of neurodiversity or something else going on for our child. But we've spoken to the school and they say not to pay attention to it in so many words until next year. Is there things we could be doing in the meantime before we can start the process of looking for a for an assessment. So 6 years of age, and probably, so I suppose for you, like you've said before, you guys noticed some traits very early on in your son's life that kind of were a few flags. But for some parents, it's not until their children are in school and have gone through the first couple of years of school before they start to go, something's just not working out here. And it seems like that's what Pauline is saying here. So in Ireland, generally the schools will suggest assessments at kind of 7, 8 years of age, because they've got a good picture on, okay, maybe there is something going on here. But have you any suggestions? Because I've got a couple as well. But have you got any suggestions for what Pauline could do if she's worried about her child? Now, she hasn't gone into the specifics. I would think maybe it's educational that she's talking about here. So maybe her child is struggling with maybe maths or spelling or English or maybe just regulation within the class. So we don't know for definite what it is. But what kind of suggestions would you have for Pauline that she can do now before they start to move into that assessment pathway?
Well, my answer is always going to have something to do with AI. But let me make this as easy and simple and safe for a user like this. So what I would recommend, the first tool I would suggest is Notebook LM. What you want to do is, as a parent, you have an idea of what you want assessed from your child, whether it's an educational thing, whether it's a behavioral, therapeutic. So do a little bit of searching with ChatGPT, any AI you have, and just search what type of assessments are available or do clinical psychologists or schools use to assess this particular issue that I'm looking at. Once you find out what that assessment is, they may say it's assessment XXX. Just throwing it out there. So you know that you need an assessment XXX. In most countries, most states around the world, to get an assessment is not a easy and timely thing. You schedule, you wait, a month goes by, 2 months go by, you get a phone call, it's been rescheduled, it's set back even further, and you go through that loop and you're just like, I just want this dang assessment so I can have a baseline. So you've used your AI, you know you need an assessment called XXX. Use your AI to find out what that assessment tracks. Look online, get an example assessment form of said XXX, and upload that form into Notebook LM. When you upload that form into Notebook LM, it becomes the knowledge base. Now you can go into the chat interface and you can directly put in, these are the signs and these are the things I see my child is doing that I'm concerned about. Can you compare it against the assessment form and give me a baseline? That way you'll get a non-clinical review and summary of where your child falls on that assessment. Again, this is something generated by AI. You don't take it to the bank. This isn't something you go get services based off from, but this gives you peace of mind and something to work with until you actually step into that evaluation for the first time. When you come to that evaluation, bring what you have and discuss with the evaluator what your concerns are. Show them the assessment that you did at home. That also gives them a baseline, so that when they build their own, now you can get the more inline details. But that'll give you some peace of mind and help you start to know what other areas to research, and kind of wrap your head around it until you get that official assessment. That would be my recommendation.
That's a brilliant idea. And I think a follow-on from that, the follow-on benefit of that is that you can start to build up your own knowledge base of the terminology that's used, the descriptions that people have, the even sometimes what the different things stand for, ADHD, whatever it might be. So you're preparing yourself to maybe go into those meetings with the schools, and you're feeling a little bit more confident going in, knowing I've got a baseline understanding of what's likely to be said in these meetings and what I might need to be able to ask for. And I suppose that's one of the reasons we've built out the FBKX, is so that comes along as the tool that can help parents to feel more confident, because it also helps parents evaluate IEP suggestions, helps parents evaluate what the school could be doing versus what the school should be doing versus what school are actually doing. And it helps you feel more confident going into those meetings and saying, look, this is what the IEP is saying is meant to be happening, but we don't see or don't know that this is actually happening. Can we have this conversation? Can you let us know if it's happening, when it's happening? And it's not that you're going in being aggressive or, confrontational with the school. It can be, this is to kind of smooth the waters a bit so that you can have the conversation in a way where it's quite calm and relaxed, but you're also being assertive, and you are making them be accountable for their role. And likewise, they can say, well, look, yeah, we're doing it here and we're doing it here. This is what you guys are due to be doing at home. Is that happening too? And that makes us accountable as parents, because they are our children. So, that's a really, really good starting point.
100%. And if you do go in, it's okay to be a little aggressive if they're not going the way if they're not telling you the stuff you want to hear. My recommendation is always, if you can go in tandem, go in tandem. Good cop, bad cop. Bad cop doesn't say anything until they have to, and then that way they know when bad cop speaks up, they might have crossed the line, and that's always the best game plan whenever discussing your child with other schools, therapies, anybody.
Are you usually the bad cop?
Most of the time. Yeah.
I can't
But
picture it.
what I found is, being the bad cop, there's a right way to do it. You can be a bad cop as long as you know and you express that, look, this has nothing to do with you as an educator. This has nothing to do with you as a therapist. This has nothing to do with you as an agency. I'm fighting for my son. He's the one that is important. And you and I can go neck to neck every single day, as long as the outcome is for his best interest. And I've said that directly to educators and have gotten maybe a little verbally out of line with them, but they know that where it was coming from was for the best interest of the child, so they don't take it personal. Um, but you should still try to control yourself as much as possible. Just sometimes it's not possible, so don't feel bad if you don't.
Well, we can always apologize if we need to.
Exactly.
Pauline, just a couple other little things that we would also suggest is trying to teach your child some self-management skills in terms of the getting themselves grounded. So get them stand up, close their eyes, picture themselves as a big strong tree, biggest strongest tree in the forest, so strong nothing can knock them over, and get them to picture the roots of the tree coming out of their feet, going into the ground, spreading really far and wide, making them even more solid. And then what leaves the body is all the stress and worry that's in their system, going out through the roots into the ground and disappearing. And what comes in is all the strength and power they need to make them the biggest, strongest tree in the forest. And then just check how solid they are. Check before and then check after, and you will definitely find, usually, that they will be a lot stronger after they've done that grounding. And what that's doing is teaching them to control their nervous system, which allows them the best opportunity to be able to learn and concentrate for longer. Now, for longer for your child might be 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is better than 1. That's 5 times better. So it's a really simple technique.
And Pauline, this is usually something I don't get a chance to do, but I'm gonna have to throw a correction at Alan. Before before getting your child grounded, take a few minutes and get yourself grounded. If you're not grounded, you can't get your child grounded.
Correct, Jashon. Thank you. And that's why we have you here to offer all the corrections for all the mistakes that I make. Thanks so much. All right, I'm going to go off in a huff now. See, I can't believe he's correcting me in front of everybody. This is shocking. No, you're dead right. Get yourself grounded first, Pauline, by doing the big strong tree. So that's just a couple of little simple techniques that you can start to do to feel a bit more empowered, Pauline, and a bit more confident that you're being proactive in supporting your child. If it is a mathematical issue or a spelling issue, go and sign up for FPK University. It's completely free at the moment, and take the Empowering Learning Spelling and Numeracy courses. We guarantee, without guaranteeing, that your child will be able to spell more effectively and be able to do their times tables way more effectively. And the other thing is, remember your child is 6. So it's very easy for those of us with much older children, much older children, to look back and go, 6 is so young. But when you're there, like 6 is 6, and that's the most important age because that's the age that you're at. But just know that you are building a child for life, to turn them into an adult who feels confident, who feels calm, who feels self-assured. So you don't need to fix everything overnight. It's okay if it takes a bit of time. That's all right. So thank you so much for your question, Pauline. All right. Let me have a look. Next question comes from James. This one's an interesting one, Jashon. Hi, myself and my wife are going through a really tough patch. Our son, who is 10, was diagnosed with ADHD last year, and we have very different parenting styles. I find that I stay calmer quite a bit, and my wife tends to blow her top a bit more easily, which then causes my son to react in a negative way. She will say that I'm too lenient, and sometimes he reacts negatively to me as well because I'm too passive. This is causing a significant strain on our relationship. I think we both want the best for our son. In fact, I know we both want the best for our son, but how do we maintain our relationship as we navigate getting this as right as possible for our little lad? That's tough. That is tough.
Yep.
And being in a relationship with someone is like, it's always going to be challenging. Like opposites attract, Jashon. So we usually will find somebody who's not exactly like us, and we'll fall in love with them, and it's fantastic at the start. And then as our relationship develops, some of those things they're little annoyances. Sometimes they can be big annoyances. And for our partners, they probably have the exact same. Well, obviously not our partners. Our partners are blessed to have such perfect specimens of husbands. But for the average person, their partner might turn around and go, yeah, that's pretty annoying, but I'll just put up with it. So compromise is really, really important. And for me, for James in this situation, I think compromise is important, but I'm going to pull it back to the Karpman drama triangle, which is my favorite thing in the world. And in the drama triangle, in the negative triangle, we have the rescuer, we have the persecutor, and we have the victim. And we are more likely to slip into that negative triangle if we are under stress. So the rescuer is the person who looks after everybody, and they take care of everything, they make sure everybody's okay. And they keep doing everything for everybody, making sure everything's okay and doing all that they can for everybody until they get tired, Jashon. And then they slip into the victim role. And the victim role doesn't mean you're a victim, but in your head you're going, here I am, doing everything to make sure everybody else is okay, and no one's even asking, am I all right? And then the victim jumps into the persecutor. that's it, I'm done. I'm off to the bed for a month. I am never helping them ever again. They can take care of themselves. I hate them. And then the persecutor feels guilty and jumps back into the rescuer. I'm sorry. I was just a bit stressed, a bit under pressure. Let me do everything for everybody, take care of everything, and make sure everybody is okay. Now, over the years, in my experience, mums are in rescue a hell of a lot. Because if mums didn't do everything, stuff wouldn't get done. But imagine in my house, Jashon, if I'm the only one who does the washing, the only one who does the cooking, the only one who does the cleaning, the ironing, and then I get tired of being the only one doing all of that. And I slip into the victim, and I'm going, no one's even helping me. And then I jump into the persecutor, and I turn around to my family and like, you pack of lazy feckers, never lift a finger. That's it, the Wi-Fi is gone for 6 months, right? But I've never shown my kids how to use the washing machine. I've never shown them how to iron clothes. I've never let them cook a meal and let it be a disaster and for that to be okay. So the rescuer, while it feels like a nice position to be in, is actually disempowering other people from learning how to do things for themselves. Now, also in my experience, teenagers and young people bounce in and out of victim and persecutor like there is no tomorrow. Why can't I go to an over 18s disco even though I'm only 12? You are the worst parents in the world. I hate your guts, right? But if we look at this situation for James and his partner, they've only recently, in the last year, got a diagnosis. But a diagnosis is just a point in time. The reality is, to get to the point of getting a diagnosis, you have to have gone through a number of years of challenging behaviours, trying to figure things out, wondering what's going on. That's even before you get to sit down for an assessment. So James and his wife and his son have probably gone through a really, really challenging life together because of the situation, which gives them a much better chance of slipping into that negative triangle. And probably right now, they're both in the rescuer. They're both trying to make things as good as possible. And the fundamental thing is, I think James is absolutely right. They both want the exact same thing. I don't think either of them are sitting down in the evening going, right, so tomorrow, this is how I'm going to really piss him off, or this is how I'm going to do her head in just to see if I can get them really, really upset and angry. They're not doing that. You're both going to bed going, I hope tomorrow is better because today was really, really tough. So the first thing I'd say is, James, is look at grounding yourself first and foremost, and then look at, well, what do we need to do to find a way to communicate more effectively so that we can reduce the stress in ourselves? That might be sitting down, pulling the drama triangle off the internet, and sitting down and going, right, how do we stop bouncing around here as best as we can? It may be going for couples counselling. It may be just taking a break and going, do you know what? We are stressed. We are both trying our best. We both know we're trying our best. Let's give ourselves a break as best as we can. And the great thing, Jashon, and I'll let you come in after I finish this point, about the drama triangle, is that there's a positive triangle. So instead of being a victim, we can be vulnerable. Instead of being a persecutor, we can be potent. And instead of being a rescuer, we can be responsive. So let's go being vulnerable, right? So no one wants to be vulnerable. And society teaches us it's not okay to be vulnerable because society equates vulnerability with weakness. And none of us want to feel weak. But actually, if we can be vulnerable with ourselves first and foremost, I need help with something. Then we can move into being potent and actually asking for the help. So if me and you are sitting down having a cup of coffee and I say, Jashon, see this big heavy table right here, I've got to move it downstairs. You just stay where you are, it's fine, I'll do it myself. I have a bit of a bad back, but seriously, just stay where you are, it's grand, I'll do it myself. And I start dragging the table and my back is killing me. And in my head I'm going, there he is sitting there. And he didn't even offer to give me a hand. And he knows of a bad back because I told him, right, that's it. I am never speaking to him again. Whereas if I'm vulnerable with the right person, and that piece is important. And I say, Jashon, I've got a big heavy table here. I've got to move. I've got a bit of a bad back. Any chance you can give me a hand? I'm assuming 9 times out of 10 you're going to say yeah. Right? Now, like I said, we can assume friends and family are the right people to be vulnerable with. So I might say to my mum, I'm really struggling with the kids at the moment. And I'm being vulnerable with my mum. That's what we want? Great. And then my mom turns around and goes, I always told you not to have any children. You never had a paternal bone in your body. You're useless. And I get pulled straight from the vulnerable position into the victim. And where's the victim going to go? Either into the rescuer, I am never talking to my parents ever again about my feelings, or into the persecutor. Well, if you'd been a better parent to me, then I'd have been a better parent. So it's actually all your fault, right? So we got to think about who we can be vulnerable with. Then we go and ask for the help. That's being potent. But the other thing about being potent, Jashon, is that it's being assertive. And like you spoke about in the last answer, sometimes we have to be assertive for our children and for ourselves. This is not okay. And then you move into the responsive. But we are going to work together to find the best solution for this little man. And I think for James and his partner, it is about moving into that responsive. Neither of us want to be fighting anymore. We just want to do the best we can for our son and try and navigate this situation as best as possible and build our family, because we do want to be together. We do want to bring up a son who is given the opportunity to fulfill his life as best as possible. And we don't want to get a divorce. We don't want to go through really hard times. We just want to live together. So just use the framework of the drama triangle initially. And if that doesn't work, then maybe do go and speak to a therapist, a counsellor, a coach, as a couple if you can. And if your wife is sitting there and you're saying this to her and you show her this and she goes, piss off, I don't care, you can go and talk to someone, do it. James, go and talk to somebody yourself, even just for the opportunity to get things off your chest. Right, Jashon, over to you. What would you suggest to James in that situation?
Let me address your bad back and moving the table. You look over at me and say, I have a bad back and I need to move this table. I'm going to look at you and say, I have a bad back too. Let's hire a mover and I'll help split the cost.
But that's being responsive. That's exactly it. That's being responsive. Come on, we'll figure out a way to sort this out.
Yeah, bad back's not good. So you obviously come from a different background of your studies and what you do in life, coaching. So I understand completely where you're coming from. My first thought when this question is posed is not so much looking at the triangle, but looking at what it is the overall goal is. So if the goal is, if the child's the goal, and in this situation, he was just diagnosed with ADHD, so obviously there had to be some behaviors before that diagnosis. Once you get that diagnosis and you've got the two separate parents, there needs to be a single source of truth built around the child. And what I mean by that is what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. What do we correct? What do we not correct? And when we do these things, it needs to be 100% of the time. Can't be, I'm correcting it sometimes, but I'm just too tired to get up and correct it, because then that's not consistency. So once we figure out what the single source of truth is of what we want the behaviors to be, or what we allow and don't allow, combined, then I think that's the best starting point, because now you have a single source of truth. Both parents may not address that the same. In this situation, you have one parent that's more timid, one that's more aggressive, or maybe that's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. So in that situation, one might be a little more hesitant to make the correction on a behavior, and the other one may be gung-ho to jump in and make that correction. It's about finding a balance. If you know you're the one who always jumps in to make the correction, in my mind and in my household, sometimes it just takes that look over and like, I'm not grabbing this one. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think before even getting to the triangle, it's finding out what is going to be acceptable and not acceptable based off from both parents' input. Once you have that, then it's easy to move into the triangle and understand while you're working on that single source of truth. That's where the triangle's wrapping around. How do we stay focused on this outline that we've come up together? So my recommendation would be the same as yours, but also before going too deep in the triangle, and I may be wrong, you could correct me, but is to both parents come up with how they think the situation should be handled, all the situations around the child should be handled. Put that on paper so it's one source of truth and start from there.
That's a really good idea. And James, if you want to drop me an email to Allen@fbkuniversity.com. That's ALLEN at fbkuniversity.com. I will send you over a parenting plan, which is a structured way of having that conversation that Jashon is just talking about. So I'll send that on to you so you have it there. And that way it gives you guys the framework to sit down and both acknowledge your emotions, both of you, because you're going to have different maybe emotions, and come up with a clear plan of action where everybody knows what their role is. And the most important part of the parenting plan is the last part, which is if it doesn't work, go back and pick another one to try, because sometimes when we try something new, it might work, it might not work. But it doesn't mean that it was a waste of time. It just means that you tried it and it didn't work in that iteration at that moment. And sometimes it just takes a little simple tweak for it to be more effective. I remember working with a couple years ago, and they were saying, I don't think I've given this example, they were saying like every single morning, school morning, was horrendous for 2 years, like every single morning. They said, like, I think they had 3 kids, 9, 12 and 6. And so there was just arguments and crying every single morning. I said, okay, well, let's break it down. What's going on? So the 2 older kids start getting on at the youngest, who starts crying. Dad gives out to the older 2, they start crying. Dad goes off to work, mom's left with 3 crying kids, trying to get them out the door to go to school so she can go to work. I said it was just horrible. I said, okay, let's drill down even further. What's actually going on? What's causing the argument? Well, the youngest takes so long to get ready that the older 2 think they're going to be late, and that gets them annoyed. They then shout at her. She starts crying. Dad gives out to the older 2. They start crying. Dad goes off to work. Mom's left 3 crying kids and heading off to school as she tries to get out to work. And the stress levels are through the roof. Right, well, let's look at, well, what might be driving this? So the youngest has taken so long. Right? So I said, well, why don't one of you get up 10 minutes earlier and help your youngest to get dressed? And the mum gave me the stock response that loads of parents will give, and I've probably given myself as well as a parent, is, yeah, but she's old enough to get herself dressed. I said, absolutely she is old enough, but she's not doing it. And we have to work with our kids where they're at, not where we think they should be at. So I said, if you think about it, if you go in and help your child get dressed, you guys will be downstairs before anybody else gets up. So anyway, she phones me 2 weeks later and she says, oh my God, the house has flipped 180. She said, it took 2 days of me helping her to get dressed before she started to get herself dressed. But we still have a lovely time and a bit of a conversation and a chat in the morning, and we are downstairs before anybody else gets up. And I met that mum a few years later. She was like, it just no longer became an issue. And what she said to me when I met her was, she goes, I can't believe we couldn't see that ourselves. But when we are in the stressful situation, it's so difficult to see beyond it because we're not thinking straight, because we're stressed. So the logical part of our brain has shut down. So maybe, James, you and your wife deserve to go for a lunch together. You deserve to go for a dinner together. You deserve to go away for a night together, and make it part of it that you will sit down and go through the plan. And then when you're working through the plan, you're going to name your emotions, you're going to prioritize what things you need to change, and then you're going to come up with some solutions, and everyone's going to commit to knowing what their role is and doing it and see if it works. But I think the other thing is to be realistic. Like, I know, Jashon, you were saying like it's important to have like, 100% source of truth, but we don't operate. We're not robots, unfortunately. So, there will be times we will be too tired to put the boundary in place. So when you do this, you do it as best as you can. And the goal, in my belief, should always be try and get it as best as you can, as consistent as you can, but recognize you're not Superman or Superwoman. So I just think it might be useful. So drop me an email, allen@fpkuniversity.com, and I will send you over the parenting plan, and you can see if it's any use to you. It might not be, but it might be. Okay, so Jashon, how are we doing for time? Oh, we're doing okay. Do you want another question?
I got a question. Is there a way to trade your kids in for better ones?
We can just give them back. Just bring them back to the store, and that's the way to do it. We watched The Grinch last weekend, and I haven't seen it in years. I have to admit, I was never really a big fan of Jim Carrey, but that was the first movie I watched of his that I went, yeah, actually, he was really good in that. So, yeah, The Grinch changed my opinion of Jim Carrey. Now, I wouldn't be jumping in my seat to go and watch him, but yeah, it definitely changed my opinion of him. Okay. Next question. Shauna, this is a question for you, Jashon.
Excellent.
Jashon, I am wondering, what has been the toughest part of your journey with your son? It could be personal, it could be working with schools, it could be working with therapists, but what's been the toughest part that you're happy to share? Good correction there. And for other parents in similar situations, is there any bits of advice you would give them to help them manage their stresses so that they don't have the same challenges that you experienced? Now, I suppose that's really hard to answer. That second part is almost possible because you don't know the situation. But if you're happy to share, what's been the hardest thing for you that you're happy to talk about?
The hardest thing for me personally, it's never dealing with therapists or educators. They come and go, and they're not that significant as far as peace in my life. They're all temporary, where my son is not temporary. I'd say the hardest, there's two behaviors that are the most challenging behaviors that I've had to deal with my son that are constant, and that's self-injury, slapping to the head, biting of the palm of his hand, and kneeing his face. Like he'll raise his knee to his head. Sometimes he'll hit his mouth, his forehead. The biting, it's disturbing to see it, but I can see it's not hurting him. His hands gets kind of calloused, but when he hits his head, it just gives me butterflies and it makes me cringe inside when I see it happen. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, having to witness and trying to correct. He's 12 years old. It's been at least a 7-year thing of where he's been doing it. So I don't know how to stop it. It's just, there's always a sign that you see. He'll do something where he'll go into a pause. He'll just kind of freeze for a second. He'll pose. He'll let out a gasp, and then he'll do it. So I always know when it's going to happen because there's a sign. Like if you're playing cards with somebody, everybody has their tail. He has his tail, and I'll know when it's happening. And I can grab his knee and keep him from doing it. But even that will frustrate him because he doesn't get to hit his head. I want to let him do certain things so it doesn't frustrate him, but then at the same time, I think of a boxer. by the time he's 30 years old, if he keeps hitting his head that many times, it'll be like he's been in a boxing ring for the last 3 years getting his head pummeled, and I don't want those extra injuries. So that's been a very difficult one to deal with. Um, the other behavior that this one's been going on, we've moved into a new house about 6 months ago, and about a month afterwards, he started doing a thing. He's 12 years old. He's very much potty trained, but for the past 4 or 5 months, I don't know if he's too distracted or if I don't know what's going on with him, but when it's time to go potty, when it's number two, it's like he doesn't make it to the bathroom. And anybody who has a child with autism, they've experienced this. They've come around the corner and they've seen their child with feces all over their hands, their body, the walls, the floor. The first time it is, no, every time it is seriously a traumatic sight. Um, and it's one of those things that I just don't know why it happens and I don't know how to fix it. It's always around the same time of the evening because he's very regular schedule. So we try to catch it and intervene and get him to where he needs to be, but it's just something we haven't been able to tackle. Now, I bring up these two very different scenarios, both very personal for my son and our family, but very common in families in my situation. The levels of stress it brings are quite high. How do we deal with these situations? Situation by situation. Um, with the head hitting, it's constant. We make sure everybody's on board, every therapist, every educator is aware of it. There's a game plan, what should happen, how we should try to address it, how we should try to redirect into doing something different. And lots of times those methods will help and they'll work, but it's finding out what works. Um, so for this person who asked the question, it's a very difficult question to answer because it takes a lot of investigation. You've got to try a few things to see what works. You've got to, I'd say one of the easiest and best ways to go about it is find a Facebook forum that has your type of people in it and get into some conversations, and you will quickly find out that whatever the particular scenario is you're dealing with, there's a million other families dealing with it that have all tried something different. So, as we've always been taught, try to learn from other people's mistakes or trials and tribulations so that you don't have to go down those same roads. You may end up down those same roads, but at least you'll know somewhat what to expect. Um, being able to talk with both parents, if it's a dual parent family, is great. If it's a single parent family, finding a friend or a family member who you can discuss the topic with. Oftentimes, getting a third party who's not involved in the situation, maybe one who hasn't even seen the situation. I'll oftentimes ask people who never experienced a child with autism and just throw a scenario at them. They're going to have a totally different perspective and they're going to look at it at a totally different way because they don't live it. And sometimes there's something you didn't think about. And it can be the simplest, oh, why didn't I think about that? But it's because we're focused on the diagnosis and the terminologies around the diagnosis. When you ask somebody who's not familiar with that, they just have a simple, common sense, plain brain. Have you tried this? And it's like, aha, I got it. So those are two of our most embarrassing and critical situations that we deal with now as a family. And it's just consistent, just being persistent about it. Trying to get ahead of it when you can. If you can't, um, just deal with it as it comes and keep lots of cleaning supplies.
Yeah, that's it. Because
I don't know if
sometimes,
that directly answers the question, though.
but it
What was the
does.
second part of the question?
suggestions, which you've done, the suggested
Okay,
changes or
excellent.
things.
Excellent.
But I think, you know, maybe this is the most important point of this whole podcast today is everyone is doing the best they can in any given situation with the information and knowledge that they have and with the conditions that they're operating out of. So some days you are going to be on it, other days you might not be. And you can't overly criticize yourself because of the situation that you're operating out of. So, yeah, I think try and be as prepared as possible, but don't expect yourself to get it right all the time, because that's just not going to happen. Because here we have a man who's been dealing with this for years and years and years, and still probably at times doesn't get it right. Because you're a human being.
Every day I'm getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Every day. If there's 10 things to get right and wrong every day, 5 things are done right and 5 things are done wrong. Every single day, day in and day out. Yeah, it's and I'd say my number one piece of advice for any family dealing with neurodiversities, especially extreme behaviors like what my son has. From the very beginning, I've never been embarrassed or shy about anything my son does. This is who he is. This is who I am as a family. I don't give a crap about what I'm not one who cares what other people think. Not everyone's like me. Some families, some parents have a very tough time telling other families, other parents, even therapists, some of the embarrassing behaviors. Who wants to tell a therapist or the internet on a podcast show that their son has poop all over their self on a regular basis? It's not the best way you want to be seen, but I guarantee you, if you talk to people, you will find out you're not the only one. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It's something that happens in our world. And every parent I've talked to with the child with autism that I have personally talked to has all experienced the exact same things. And I think that's what holds a lot of parents back from receiving the help and the information that they can receive is the embarrassment or the not being sure if they want to share certain things. How will society think about me? Will they report me because I said my kid has poop on himself? Is CPS going to show up at my house? You know, don't worry about that stuff. Be honest with yourself, with your situation, and I guarantee other families are facing the same thing, and you can build a network and a community of like-minded people who know how to handle poop situations. And then you'll have a system and a network that you can count on.
Brilliant. We hope you folks have enjoyed and got something from today's question and answer podcast. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas with your families. Take it easy, look after yourselves, and try not to put too much pressure on yourselves. Any final words, Jashon, before we finish up?
Happy holidays. Have a wonderful Christmas season. Bring in the new year with a blast, and we will see you come January.
Yeah, that's it. We'll be back with more future-proof knowledge. Until then, look after yourselves and take care.
FPK, Future-Proof Knowledge Podcast. Mind unlocked. With every episode we cast real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky. FPK, Future-Proof.